G'day everyone, this is X-Men, the Phantom podcast, and you're listening to episode 267, our November 2023 comics and news review, which you'll probably hear right at the start of December, but such is the magic of podcasting. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or whatever app you're listening to us through at the moment. Don't forget to give us a rating on whatever that app is and tell a mate about us, because the jungle drums beating is the way to go in terms of spreading the word. I'm Dan Fraser, and joining me today is Jermayn Parker and Stephen East. I'm going to go through the overview in a second, but before we do, Steve, I'll throw to you first. How are you, mate? How's things?
Yeah, doing well. Good to be back here in the car again. It's been a while. It seems like it's been a while between podcasts for me anyway. So it's nice to be back here and talking Phantom with you guys.
Nice to have you back, mate. And the retro look of you back in the car is it's a flashback for everyone who's on YouTube, I'm sure. Germ over in Perth, how are you, mate?
Good, tired. Let's hope that we don't go retro and this doesn't become a 3-hour podcast like many of our other retro ones with Stephen in the car. So we'll do our best.
Try and keep everything short and succinct.
Absolutely. Well, it is, and we're in that unique time of the Australian year where the three of us are in 3 different time zones, and so juggling all of that. Anyway, we need to get into it because November is, as I say, we're literally recording on the last day of November. It's been and gone, but we need to discuss everything that's happened since the last comics and news. We're going to review all of the comics from around Australia. We're going to hear from our Chronicle Chamber correspondents from Germany and from Sweden and from India, and we're also going to discuss what's happening in the latest daily strips and the Sunday strips, and then we're going to discuss Phantom related news from all around the world. So there's a lot to get into, and I think we just need to hook in, folks. So I'm going to start with Lauren Marshall has done the cover of Frew 1956, A Web of Lies. How did you guys find this issue? Germ, you're sharing the pages on YouTube as we speak, so I'll pass over to Steve. What were your first impressions of this story, Steve?
Well, I happened to write a few notes on this one. I thought that, the title, Web of Lies, was a very aptly named title for the story. Everyone in the village seems to be hiding something in what I first thought was an alternative history timeline. But after a little bit of research, I found that England was a republic during the time that this story was set, which was news to me. I did not know that. Now, the fifth Phantom is shipwrecked on the coast of Witch Cross, and so begins the cross and double crosses as everyone tries to do what they can to get ahead. Most for personal reasons, personal gains, I should say, but others are trying to do what they think is best for the town. One thing that did confuse me in this story was the introduction. The introduction seems to produce, like you can see it on the screen now. It sees this sole survivor of a shipwreck being washed up to shore on the coast of Cornwall, and so that makes me think that this is going to be an alternative universe, an alternative Phantom universe. And then later on we hear it's the fifth Phantom, but the fifth Phantom is in 1651. It says here this is 1651 as well, and it had me stuffed.
I loved it.
Yeah. But then I thought, it's some other hero, and so the Phantom's going to come across him in his ventures, and he never does. I'm thinking, so where the heck is this other guy that's been shipwrecked who's going to avenge his shipmates? And it wasn't until I finished the story and I went back and I was writing my notes for a little introduction that I realized that introduction is actually foreshadowing or giving highlights of what's going to happen in the story. And that had me stuffed the whole way through it. I was waiting for this second hero to all of a sudden appear,
and
I thought was going to be this guy on the cover.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I loved how Lauren did that with the two heroes. They got the exact same pose, but they're shadowy and they're kind of merging into each other. I thought it was really well done, how they did that. And I'm intrigued because I read it at first and I thought, there's a spelling mistake. And then
what part was the spelling mistake?
At the start when you said, 1651, and I'm going, was it 1651? You know, coast of Cornwall. I'm thinking, man, Dudley needs an early Christmas break. He's made a big boo-boo.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking alternative timelines, like
Yeah.
alternative universes and things like that. But what's going on? What's going on here? Multiverse Phantom.
Yeah, I thought it was very well done. And I got to say, this is, apart from the whole, you know, and we'll see it here, you know, the Phantom losing his memory, getting whacked on the head a couple of times. And
I didn't harp on that one, but of course, Phantom gets it on the back of the head. It's like his kryptonite. I hate, you know, my feelings on that.
I did admit when I read that, I chuckled and I thought, oh, can't wait to discuss this on the podcast. But apart from that, I actually enjoyed the alternative, you know, that even though he had lost his memory, that was, you know, that whole swearing the oath and fighting against piracy is so ingrained into him that he did that, and he was still so Phantom-like even without his memory. And I have to say that apart from the 22nd Phantom Saga, this would be probably my most enjoyable Claes Remufy story that I've seen him write in probably the last 5-10 years before his passing, because of that whole concept. And then I really liked how I think Lauren knocked the cover out because she tied that whole thing really, really well. I think, yeah, I actually enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. And just talking about that with, you know, losing his memory, but yet still being Phantom-like, harkens back to the John X story in the dailies, I reckon.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think there, Dan? You motioned a little bit there.
No, that's a really interesting connection, Steve, that I hadn't thought of. But you make a good point there, because I probably missed both of the things that you guys are talking about in terms of a potential alternate timeline or potential spelling mistakes and that sort of stuff. I actually, I probably just sat and read it in a calm mood and not. It was weeks ago. I wasn't doing it for the podcast or anything like that. For me, it just unfolded like these things happen. Sorry,
did it? Oh, sorry, you go. I was going to say, did it fold like a typical story?
No, just that it was almost like being the Phantom, being any one of the 21 Phantoms. There is a sense of destiny about you, and you probably will get washed ashore when you should have died and drowned at some point in your career. And you probably will get knocked out. You'll get hit on the back of the head many, 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 many times. I'm with you, Jim. As soon as I said that happened, that's the Stephen East bloody event, as it happens. It happens all the time, and losing the memory. But inherently, still, as a character, you are the Phantom, irrespective of whether you got your memory or not. So it almost is coming to the point, and maybe it's being overdone as a trope, or maybe I was just generous in my thinking at the time, but it's just a thing that happens if you're in the generations of Phantom. You're going to get washed ashore on a beach when you probably should have died, and at another time or at the same time, whatever, you'll probably also lose your memory and but still be a really upstanding and Phantom-like person, irrespective, because it's just your character.
At least the bad guy took off the Phantom's hat, not to ruin the hat, when he whacked him over the head on this panel here.
Indeed. All right. Well, look, the other thing I would say about it is it felt like a classic Claes Remufy story. I actually flicked back to the front of it thinking, oh, when did they drag this from? Was it the early 1980s when he was Michael Tierras, or the late 1980s? And I was actually a bit surprised to see that it had been first published in 2021. And like you said, Jim, it was one of the stories that he produced in the last 5 years of his life, Claes. So I think he harkened back. And for me, it was a classic Claes Remufy story.
Yep.
I am concerned with the I reckon if they ever did autopsies on the Phantoms, they'd have to check for the CTE, because you can't survive that many head knocks.
No. Yeah, constant concussions as a man. We've got the 8-page second part of the issue is a 2-parter, Pinstripe Wizards. Well, I'm very excited to talk about that. But Germ's right. It's a 2-parter, and the second part finishes in our next issue. So let's talk about Jim. Jean Lafayette's Treasure, another Clays from Anthony story, as it happens. So we've got a little Clays double. This one illustrated by Kari Lapanan. Steve, you gave us such an excellent summation of the plot of the last one. Can I hope that you've got something similar for this one?
So I've only really read half the story. So hopefully we don't get any spoilers right now, but I am interested to find out what's going on. So we've got I can't pronounce the name, Jean Lafitte, the well-renowned pirate. Was it New Orleans? They found a treasure map, and it's Diana and her friend just happened to find it in a mansion, in a wall of a mansion, which happens
Well,
to
she's
belong
there for humanitarian reasons. Don't forget that Diana was in New Orleans for humanitarian reasons, then went on a treasure hunt.
She did, and I thought that was weird, actually, if I'm being honest. Said, "Oh, you on a break? Yeah, well, let's go on a treasure hunt." Huh?
Yes, and we never hear about that. Yeah.
Shouldn't you be there helping the people who are, need your help? And then you kind of see that with the Phantom, seeing it on TV. Go, hang on, treasure map. Wasn't she supposed to be here for humanitarian reasons? And yeah, so I'm glad that the Phantom was thinking the same sort of thing. However, that's as far as it really got, because I know that the bad guys now, who have been after this treasure for many years, by sounds of things, now have a lead to get there. They've kidnapped Diana and her friend, and are taking her on the treasure hunt. I'm sure that the Phantom won't be too far behind, and I'm keen to see what happens next. But I'm also heartened by so far it sounds like that this great pirate donated his money to the church. So that was a nice thing for him to do, I guess.
Oh, that's well, I like that. It leaves it on a hook, so people must go buy the comic and read it and find out for yourself. I enjoyed the story. We talked about it being a classical kind of Phantom story, the last one. This is, again, a very classical, I've read probably 100 similar stories like this by Lee Falk and by others, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing John Lafitte back as a character, in a sense.
Who's one of the men who's been buried in the vault of missing men, we should say.
Yes. Now, if I were to put on my editor hat, I wonder if publishing the Lee Falk story alongside this could have been a good way of kind of like for those who have come in late or kind of made it into a bit of a special type of story. There's a Moonstone story with I think it was called the how do you say the last name again? Lafitte's Heart or something like that. Oh, well, we're going to blame you now. So, there was a Moonstone story about that as well. So, we had maybe 100-page story or something with a couple of stories about, this famous Phantom character, in a sense. So,
from my point of view, famous Phantom character, 3 or 4 authors have used this historical figure in Phantom comics. So I don't know that makes him a famous Phantom character any more than John F. Kennedy is a famous Phantom character because he was in the JFK's adventures in the Hermes Press, to be honest.
I don't remember that story. But I guess maybe not famous, but a lot of fans enjoyed that Cy Barry, Lee Falk classic story. The sword fights between the 13th and John Lafitte. So it is a true classic story. So I don't know. That's just if it could have been padded out. I loved Kari Lapanan's artwork in here with the rain, the fog. It was really dark and heavy, and apart from the Phantom just kind of wandering into bad guys' guns, which was a little bit pathetic on page 16. I liked the darkness in this story, and here's the fog on page 22 and 23. I thought it was very well done, and I enjoyed those elements.
That's interesting because I had my comment about the artwork was going to be that I thought it wasn't his best, to be honest, and that's probably because you're right in what you've said about the atmosphere and the fog and all the rest of it. I was probably looking more at the characters in the early pages and the way that their eyes have been depicted, and it just didn't feel.
Yep.
Yeah, the eyes in particular let him down. I thought that's not his wheelhouse. The back half, you're right, and the atmospheric conditions. That's where Kari Lappinen excels.
He's not as young as he used to be. So yeah.
So let's get back to those first couple of pages, because I was thinking about the actual characters. Bottom right hand corner where we see a couple of the thugs by the looks of things. I reckon that harkens back to the classic like a Wilson McCoy type bad guy, just a bit more of a modern version.
Yeah.
And then when you're talking about the fog and stuff, I kind of had that sort of idea in some of those old dailies as well. So to me, the art was kind of like a lack of a better harken back or a homage to these, not the whole artwork, but just in some of these areas, like the way that those bad guys are and the way that the fog is. But I do agree with Dan that on the whole, not the best artwork in regards to the characters, but the atmosphere is great.
So Dan, sorry, I was just going to ask Dan, what do you think about the whole treasure hunt section? Obviously, Stephen, without giving it away for Stephen and for some of the other.
It was the better part of the story, because you've got the Phantom stalking the bad guys, and that that was the better half of the story. I thought that if I was going to compare the two Claes Romanthi stories we've been presented with in 1956 and 1957, I would say that in 1956, the artwork from they're both Kari Lappinen, aren't they? Both stories.
Yeah.
So if I was going to compare the two in A Web of Lies, I would have said that Kari Lappinen carried the story and Claes Romanthi wrote a story. And in the second one, I'd say that Claes Romanthi's story carried the story and the artwork came along with it. So, that's probably where I stand on the two.
Fair enough.
So speaking of artwork, though, what I was going to cut to is what I was trying to allude to earlier, which was the cover for 1957, which is a new Frew artist. Tamad is his name, from India. Now, Jerm, you've interacted with Tamad, and there's an article on the Chronicle Chamber website introducing him to Phantom audiences. But I really like his first up cover for Frew. I think it's really dynamic. It's cartoony, but it's realistic-ish, and it's just a fun cover.
I think the only negative that anyone has ever picked out is the skull rings on the wrong finger. But no, I liked it. It works. It could work as a poster. It was a wraparound. He did have the original for sale, but I believe that has been picked up and purchased as well. He is going to, I think it's the Delhi Comic Con in the first week of December. So if there's any of our Indian friends, with a PH of course, who are around there, hopefully he will have some of these comics for people to sign. But if not, he can be reached on social media, and hopefully he will have some other free work to do. One of the things he has just recently worked on is there's a kind of like a what if Spider-Man was an Indian, and he actually did the interiors for that short sequel stories or something as well. So yeah,
cool.
Has he done any other cover work, or is this his first cover?
He's done some other cover work, but this is his first Phantom one.
All right. Well, someone to keep an eye on, that's for sure. And hopefully our Indian fans can get amongst it and get along to that Comic Con in Delhi, and hopefully let Tamad know that you're a fan of his work. Now, we do need to go to the Pinstripe Wizards, which is the second part of both issues 1956 and 1957. It's a really I'm fascinated to hear what you guys have got to talk about, because we've interacted a little bit on Messenger, but not heaps about this story. But I know that it's a different sort of a Phantom story. I'm also mindful that we do have a podcast coming up with Jason Franks, the author of this story. So I don't want to, shoot use all our gunpowder, if you like, talking about it here tonight when we can catch up with Jason in a podcast or two. But I'll hand over to you guys. What did you think of the Pinstripe Wizards?
At first, I thought Dudley and Glenn had reverted back to their hippie disco days with the back cover. And I'm thinking, what on earth have they done? What on earth has Jason talked them into? But then I read the first part and I'm like, I'm a believer. I actually really enjoyed it.
Because you saw her face, or?
Well done, Dan. Well done. But no, I actually really enjoyed it. It was, for me, it's a classic bad guy hunting a bad guy type of scene with a new twist. Diana's playing an important role. You're seeing the Phantom and Diana interacting in a nice, normal way as well. Like they're going out, they're not just a superhero and the +1. They're, the dynamic and all that is really well. And I really enjoyed the artwork. The panels are open, especially in this page here on page 28 and 29 in issue 1956, which is the first part. You've got Diana kind of breaking the boxes, which goes with the flow. And yeah, I was impressed.
I'm with you with the artwork. It's like open and I was using the term sparse in my head. It's not overcrowded at all, and just the way that the story flows through the artwork is like that panel. The series of 3 panels you got there, I think, is fantastic.
Is this where he gets changed out of the Mr. Walker?
Yeah.
I really like that.
I always like those images where he's kind of like the old Clark Kent
Superman. Yeah.
When Mr. Walker was turning into breaking the shell and coming to the Phantom. And yeah, this it's a fun story. It's just a little fun 2-part 8-page story, and it's fun. And you see, he's a rock star. Look, he's a cross between I don't know, the ZZ Top and the weird sisters from Harry Potter. He's nuts.
I'm gonna have to try and find an image for that to put that in for the YouTube listeners. It's just look, it's fun.
Like that, that'd be awesome. I like that.
Yeah, it's fun, and that's what comics are supposed to be.
Yes,
you can have some comics. You can have some fun occasionally, and I enjoyed it. I had fun.
Yep.
And
I agree with all of that. And it was tied together with a plot line that justifies the Phantom dressing up as he did and all the rest of it. And obviously good prevails in the end. What I what I would have loved for Jason to have included is the old jungle saying, Phantom takes many forms. And boom. That's what it is. Phantom can be a detective in all scenarios, and we would, there's probably a little bit of Batman doing the Watusi in this. It harkens to those sorts of things, but capital PH fun. We've often said that's a fun story or whatever. This is right up there with just like, let's push the boundaries, because it does. It pushes the boundaries. There'll be plenty of fans who see some of these scenes as a standalone image and go, what the hell? This is not what the Phantom's all about. But if you read the story, Phantom takes many, hashtag jungle saying.
Yeah. I like the artwork, and we've said it before on the podcast, but having new creators doing these 8-page stories is the perfect breeding ground, because now I can go, okay, I would love to see Kay do more of these stories, and Jason understands the Phantom enough that I would be happy for him to do some more as well.
Like, check that artwork. It looks almost three-dimensional. The fist is coming out at you.
Yeah.
And the way that, you know, Diana's a strong character, you know.
Yeah.
She knocks off one of the bad guys with that, you know, with that kick there. So, and with Bam, and you're talking about, you know, the Batusi or whatever, you know, the old 1966 Batman TV show, and then you got the big Bam there. You know, you just wait for the horn section.
Yes. Now, I do need to get you to go and hold that on the last page there, Germ, because this is an extraordinary thing. Can you zoom in the last panel? This is an extraordinary thing because I, months ago, on Facebook, caught up with Deepak Singh, who fans, if you're on Facebook, and you may have seen his posts from time to time, and on a night, I just decided, you know what, I need to get myself one of his figures. It's not licensed. He does his own work, but it's fantastic. And literally on the same day that my subscription for this comic came, and the Ghost Who Rocks This picture was imaged. And John, I'm going to just stop sharing the screen because this character came on that exact same day. I had a package with this Phantom beating on this drum on the same day that subscription came. And that was so serendipitous, and it was just a nice phantoming moment for me to have him. Those two things arrive at the same time.
There's a Wilson McCoy image of that. Which is what I loved about this. And then, but for Jason and for, sorry, I've forgotten the artist. Okay.
That's right. For him to have used, or them to have used that image from Wilson McCoy as their muse for, and just as I say, they arrived on the same day. That was freakish.
So look, I think you said it perfectly, Dan. There's a lot of things that I think we can all go in, but let's keep that for our podcast with Jason.
Yes.
Righto.
So that brings us then to the Collector's Replica series number 37, issue 1958. It's a Glenn Ford cover, and Glenn Ford's keeping the covers. And I really like this one. And I say that in the context of, you know, I don't think any of us were particularly enthusiastic about Glenn's more recent cover or two. This one, I think, is a back to something like his best.
Look, and I'm not an artist, and I hate to be a critic, there's some anatomic problems that I have with it, but I like the action. I like that it's still got the pulpy feel. And then I like the colouring with it as well, like the red behind the Phantom's back makes it pop. And to be honest, look, there's some good stories in there as well.
Yeah, there is. So the stories we've got in this one are, I guess they're the replicas. We know this. So the replica of number 89, which was the Super Apes. We've also got the replica of number 88, the Matchmaker. And so both of those have got art by Wilson McCoy, and it's also the replicas of 87 and 86, which is the full story, which is good. The part 1 and part 2 of the Thuggies, again by Wilson McCoy, all obviously authored by Lee Falk. We're continuing this trend now. We're starting to see in the replicas of 4 issues at a time, not 3. So that's going to hurry up the end date of these that we had anticipated based on the maths of 3 at a time. Still years away. I'm still enjoying having these replicas. I've actually got no problem with these. What are your thoughts, guys?
Look, the stories are great. The Thuggies story is such a classic yarn that goes from, like, it's kind of like those old school movies that just like Ben-Hur, that just goes on and on and on and on and on. You know, there's like 3 stories in one. Lee Falk must have really enjoyed writing that story. Super 8s, you know, I like the whole Morse code trick type of thing, and the Matchmaker is another fun little one thing that I really did enjoy. And if you are a Phantom Nuffy, which I'll probably put up my hand and say that I'm a Phantom Nuffy, is reading the notes from Barry Stubbersfield is really interesting, because what he has managed to do is he has managed to get a oh, what does he call it? He calls it a kind of like the notes or an archive notes from actual King features, and what they have written down as the story titles is different than what a lot of people actually know these stories as. So we know the story as the Super Apes, where they've got it as the incredible Super Apes of Longo. And then, for instance, the Thuggies, we see it as the Thuggies, we know it all as the Thuggies, but King Features in 1981, their archive, which I guess you could argue is probably the traditional or probably the official, they've got it as the Triangle. So yeah, it's interesting reading that and having a look at some of those notes, because the notes that Barry has dug out from the 1981 archive from King Features, in a sense, rewrites history for a lot of these stories.
Yeah, and it's a really valuable part of any of the replica series, I reckon. Steve, have you been able to pick this up? Do you read these, or where do you put them?
Well, I don't always read them, and I should, because they are classic stories. But it's still the old thing that the reprints of the early stories, the early Frews, which were edited a fair bit. So that's still playing in the back of my head. If I had the time, maybe. But the thing is, when I do read them, I still enjoy them.
Yeah.
Even if they are edited. So,
yeah.
6 one way, half a dozen the other.
Absolutely. And I always keep going back to, what about newer readers who haven't seen these stories before?
That's right.
And pick them up and read them for the first time, edited or not. It gives them an understanding of the longevity and the history of the character. So I don't mind it. Anyway, we won't spend any more time on that, because we need to march on to Giantsize Phantom. This is the last of the new Frews that we've got for November. Giantsize Phantom number 27. That's got a couple of Phantom stories in it. The Mystery of the Great Swamp, which is a repeat from Fratelli Sparta. It's also got a Sir Falcon story, a new one from Shane Foley, the second part of A Voice from the Dead, which features the Phantom in it. We'll discuss the stories in a second, but while we're here, we've got to jump into the news, and I think it's more important than the stories of Glenn Lumsden, who is synonymous with Giantsize, this second series that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years from the new Frew crew. 27 issues of Giantsize, and Glenn Lumsden has drawn the cover for every single one of them. Is this his last cover, Jerm? You broke the story on chroniclechamber.com that he's walking away from Giantsize. This is his last cover?
Yeah, this is his last cover. It's sad news, because like you said, Giantsize and Glenn Lumsden just, kind of go in, and, everyone looks forward to Glenn Lumsden's latest cover and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a little bit sad, but I loved Glenn's attitude when we were all talking to him, and it's all included in the article, where he says, I wanted to go out while I was still enjoying it, while I was still on top, while, that love for the character was still there. And I think that's very important. It's a great philosophy to have that, and look, we have this discussion, and we listen to this discussion in the sports field when we're having sports players who try and stay on for a little bit longer and get another year out of their contract, and then they, retire halfway through or something like that. So, it's good with that, but look, sad. And I guess Glenn Ford now has to find a new cover artist for Giantsize.
And that's going to be a tricky activity, because they have become tied in so together. And Glenn has had, Lumsden, I should say, has just had a real affinity, not just with the Phantom character, but with all of the other Frews. But if you look at this, even the cover for 27, all of these Frew characters we've actually, and you recognise this germ as something that had appeared in a folio, a giant size folio that we've seen. So some Frew collectors who are gathering those posters will have seen it, but the caption's been added, "Rest easy," and we see the Phantom galloping away from the rest of the heroes, marching on into battle with a little "Rest easy." I think that's a really nice farewell from Glenn. A really, it's quite poignant when you think of it in terms of his last cover.
It's a cheesy goodbye after a big crossover adventure. They're galloping, like in the cowboy movies where they're going off in the sunset, and you just see the little silhouettes. It's cheesy. But that's what Giantsize is.
Yes,
that is it, and it's great.
Whoever follows in Glenn's footsteps has got big shoes to fill, and certainly hope that they do Giantsize justice.
There's only one person who it could be.
Are you thinking Jeremy McPherson?
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Maybe two people. Jeremy McPherson or Shane Foley.
Yeah, I could go Shane Foley as well. Worth noting that the first, so Giantsize, as we've seen it, is a revamp, if you like, of Giantsize as Frew produced it in late 1950s, so 1957 through to, for about, my point being, Giantsize series number 1, there were 26 issues. This is Giantsize issue number 27 of the second series. So Glenn has just seen it through to one more issue than the entire run of the first iteration of Giantsize in the late 50s, early 60s, which I'm sure is not lost on Glenn Lumsden. He will be acutely aware of that, I suspect. The stories within it, and we'll speculate and we'll judge and we'll talk about the new cover artists when Giantsize 28 comes around. But the stories within it, we've got The Phantom, The Mystery of the Great Swamp, which was initially published by Fratelli Sparta, as I said, back in issue number 34. I don't suppose, Jim, you've done the research to see how many times this story has been published ever. No, will you do that while I talk about it? Because I suspect there's a little bit of Phantom's World about this, because it's the story that has come from an Italian publisher that I don't think will have been published in English before. That's my suspicion anyway. It's an interesting story. It's got lots of Phantom tropes in it. One thing about it, and I'm speaking knowing that Jerm and Steve haven't actually had the opportunities to read this, but that it's interesting in the way that it deals with the Phantom as the unknown commander of the Jungle Patrol, because the Jungle Patrol at one point are told, you need to bomb the clearing in front of the Skull Cave, and they're given that information from the unknown commander. So, and it's Colonel Weeks, it's the 21st Phantom who does this. So it's an interesting bent on what we understand to be the relationship between the Phantom as the unknown commander in the Jungle Patrol.
Yeah, so the story hasn't been published in English. First published in December 17, 1972, I believe.
1972. So 51 years later, we're getting a republish of it in English.
So
that's pretty.
So I love the idea how you talked about from a Giant's world. How you made mention of that. Did you enjoy having this type of story in your Giantsize?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I absolutely did. It's as we know from the Italians of that era, they're very much mimicking Seuj, so the art is really pleasant, I suppose, because I love Seuj of that era as well. And if they're copying that, and there's actually some panels there, I don't know if you can see that are super reminiscent of Seuj, some iconic images that he's produced. Colonel Weeks is absolutely Seuj Colonel Weeks as well. So they're very true to what Seuj was doing at the time, and that gives it a nostalgic feel, even though you've never read it. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Now, as you said, me and Stephen haven't read Giantsize. I haven't even got mine. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Sir Falcon as well, which has got a Phantom influence, I believe?
Yeah, it's a really interesting comparison between these two stories. The Sparta one starts the book, and Shane Foley's Sir Falcon one finishes the book. They are the two Phantom stories in this issue. The Sparta story is 16 pages long. Sir Falcon is 8 pages long, and I would say Sir Falcon has got twice as much narrative, twice as much dialogue in its 8 pages than the other story has in its 16. It's actually, and I say, Shane, I know you listen to this, so I say this with all due respect, I found it really dense to read and lots of dialogue and lots of narration and not as much. And that's not the case. I'm holding a specific page there. That's the last page that really opens up again in terms of the artwork and the dialogue. But I did find the story really condensed, and I wonder if it wouldn't have benefited from being a 3-parter, not a 2-parter, to try and get all of that in. So again, the first 2 or 3 pages were really full of action and all the rest of it, and then it became the name of the story is A Voice from the Dead, and there's about 3 or 4 pages where basically it feels like you're reading a voice and not seeing very much picture, if I can be honest.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Appreciate that. Looking forward to getting it.
Yeah, and that's it. It's very much a Sir Falcon story where with the Phantom on the fringes, supporting and being the observer, I suppose. So, yeah. So that's the 4 issues that we've seen from Frew across November, probably late October. There's also lots of reviews from other comics around the world, and there's a bit of a glut, so we need to get straight into them. We've got the Fantomen comics from Sweden. Mikael is letting us know about those, reviewing those. We've got both Shakti and Regal comics from India, and very excited that Seuj is going to review those. And Christian from Germany with the Zabostan comic as well. So I hope you enjoy listening to the rest of the comics from around the world, not just Australia. Pass on over to those guys.
Fantomen Review.
Welcome back for another Fantomen review with me, Mikael. This issue might get you green of envy. Maybe that's just a Swedish expression. Well, it is issue 21 of 2023. Luca Arbata starts this issue off with a cover in green that looks inspired by the reprint story of the issue. In the editorial page, we get to know that they are almost done with the planning work for 2024's Fantomen issues, and that there will be new creators and old ones with a mix of reprints. Second part here is about the bronze match in soccer for ladies, and how a certain Australian podcast made a bet about the costume that the Phantom will wear depending on this match. But the stakes was too high, but after the result, we Swedes feel that we should have made the bet. The first story is the newspaper story Death in the Himalayas by Tony DePaul and Mike Manley. The daily story continues on the Old Man Moss's What If storyline. I like the idea of Kit becoming a freedom fighter. Let's see if I can find it here. I can't find it. No worries. And I don't know if I'm reading into it too much, but I think it looks like he quite likes Savarna, and maybe in this What If story they could be more than just friends. Who knows? Maybe I'm just reading into it. And the second part is the reprint story that the cover is based on, and from the looks of it in the comment section in YouTube, this is a fan favorite. It's a young expedition with a kidnapped girl and a Nazi getting punched in the face, and what's better than a Nazi getting punched in the face? Maybe several Nazis getting punched in the face. And ends with the preview of next issue. We get the last part of Belle Epoch and the epilogue, and then we also get a Carl Schempe episode and a full album of Undertaker. Looking forward to that in 19th of October. This time it is issue 2223 of 2023. My issue is a bit damaged by it was raining the day the postman delivered it. We get a very unique cover, I would say, by a first-time Phantom artist, Adrian Malmgren. And this issue is filled like Carl Schempe, Undertaker, 2 Phantom issues, an interview. It's so filled that the preview for next issue needs to be on the first page because the last page is used. So let's go to the stories. This is the 6th part of the Belle Epoque suite by Pete Anderson and Percy Ochoa, or how it's pronounced. This is a joy to read, I would say, and it gives some nice information about the hideout in Notre Dame, and in a clever and fun way, I would say. Like, a guy only needs a bed and a desk. Yeah, it's a bit fun, like it usually is with Pidde. Then we have a Carl Schempe story, and this is a shorter one, but short and sweet. And I love Carl Schempe. It's such a great side comic for the Phantom. And then we have a full album of Undertaker, one of these French albums, and yeah, the Western theme might be overused a bit, but I really enjoy Western stories, and this is no exception. It's very good. After that one we have, let's see here, we have the, it's long. Yes, we have the epilogue of the Belle Epoque story, Jane Saves the President. First published in Frew 1950, reviewed by Chronicle Chamber in episode 259. Yeah, the first part of the 6th part, it was first published in Frew 1923 and reviewed by Chronicle Chambers in episode 226. Yeah, and this is also a short story, but yeah, it's fun that Jane can solve crimes also, and in the Australian part, a bit that actually differs is, here we say it's the story continues in this part, while in Australia it continues with the prisoner in Marrakesh, and here it's just says it continues in 25-26 of 2023, so I guess there will be a reprint of the prisoner in Marrakesh, so looking forward to that. Then we get an interview on the last 2 pages with Pete Anderson, and that is very nice to read because I enjoy his stories quite well, and yeah, it gives some good information. New Fantomen, issue 24 of 2023, with this amazing cover that looks like a painting by Janus Orden. In the editorial page, Andreas writes about the book fair in Sweden, and yeah, the good news seems to be that all the Fantomen books were sold out already on Saturday. The Phantom story in this issue is a new one by Jakob Havink and Janus Orden. The All-Seeing Eye Stone, den allseende ögonstenen. The third Phantom chases after some kidnappers that took the Prince of Vanbassy to Italy, and he learns it was just a ruse to get him there to Italy. And once he's there, he meets this self-confident man that wants to do a series of challenges with the Phantom, and it seems that he has the upper hand. So a bit different story, a way to tell the story, and yeah, I liked it. Second part of the issue was a new album with Lavenin, the Poisoner. I liked this already after the first time it was in Fantomen, and it is still great. So this was part 1 of this album. The part 2 will be in the next issue. And speaking of the next issue, in the preview section we'll learn that we will read a Sunday story, The Ingenious by Tony DePaul and Jeff Weigel. We will also read the classic Team Fantomen story, The Prisoner in Marrakesh, the sequel to Pide's Belle Epoque suite. We will also get second part, as we said, of The Poisoner. And look at that! Very nice looking ad for Achilles Vegan Kickstarter campaign. This must have been a great guy who lay out this one. You should check this campaign out because it's the Phantom creator Kari Leppanen's own sci-fi series about this Achilles Vegan. It went in Fantomen way back, and check it out. That's all from me. Happy Phantoming.
Hello and welcome to another one of Chronicle Chamber's comic book reviews from India. I am Seuj Abir, and today we're going to be reviewing Regal Publishers The Phantom Comics number 32, 33 and 34. So let's get started with the review. Looking at number 32 and 33, we can these two issues are supposed to be the anniversary special of Regal publishing the Phantom Comics for 3 years now, and that to celebrate that, Regal released these two issues back in August. It was announced, I think, in the 23rd of August, and it was released around the 31st, but it was shipped to me before that, and I got it a long time ago, but couldn't review it, both of them, because of some other commitments, but here we are. So this issue, number 32, is supposed to be a discounted edition, a special discounted edition comics, and this is a normal issue, they said. So this issue contains one story only. This is interesting because we actually haven't seen that with the Regal issues, but Regal now, as you will see in the next issue, they continued that one story per issue thing with their English issues, which is very interesting, and we will get it back to that at the end of the review. Looking at this discounted issue of number 32, it is priced 200 rupees, and they discounted it to 100, so it became 100 rupees. That was their discount for this issue, and it contains one story, which is Luaga's Undercover Tour, and that is the story by Lee Falk and Cyber. So this issue, what I would say is brings a familiar artist that hasn't done a cover for Regal since some time now, and that is Mr. Obilat Chako, and a very nice cover from Obilat Chako. As you can see, it looks really nice, and we also get as a freebie this card based off the cover. It's not essentially a very thick card, but it's fine and looks nice with the cover. and the cover is of course as always laminated, and it's feel it is hard. Yeah. So looking inside, only one story which we talked about before, and we have the credits page and the story. So the story, again, because it's a daily story, they had to commission a colorist, and this time is the return of Simi Muhammad. So he colored this story. It as usual has this problem, not the problem, but I kind of find it as as an issue, because his coloring, it's fairly good, it's really great, but why then do we need kind of this kind of extra shadows or something like that on the colors? Or, some shadowing goes too far. I have seen on the images, this panel especially, because you can see too much shadow, and that is kind of what I find problems with. But overall, a nice coloring, looks nice, very pleasant to the eye, and but these kind of shadows effects are what I would not like that, but that's fine. Yeah, overall, I'd say nice issue, nice coloring, but still, I don't like these kind of the shadows that Simi Muhammad puts in. I mean, it kind of feels like too much for me, at least, because and then you get the discontinuity. Here you don't see any color on any shadows on the Phantom, or even in this panel. Or if we take examples like this panel, we don't see any shadows. Yeah, it's something. It kind of is discontinued. So it is that problem I've always been having with Simi Muhammad's color, but it's fine. Looks nice, and he's a great colorist. Makes the story look quite well. That's nice. We also get a cover gallery of all the issues that Regal published, including the Mandrake issue they did, the Leaf Walk birthday special. And yeah, that's then again we have the Malayalam comics they did back in 2019, and we see these ads and stuff. That is essentially what this coming to number 33. This is a pretty thick book, not like the other one, which was like a small issue of like 26 pages, but this one is a pretty thick book, as it has 80 pages. So yeah, the cover, it contains two stories, so the Fence by Lee Falk and Seuj, and the Return to the Temple of Gods by Paul and Weigel. So the cover is based on the story The Fence, and by Ankit Mitra, and it looks nice. It is very, yeah, it is quite nice. The colors and things do pop, and I quite like it a lot, and it is marked as the anniversary special of 2023, and we get this free card based off the cover. So looking at what's what's inside. This is the credit space, and we have the story. The first story, the fence. The fence. The story is by Lee Folk and the art is by Seuj. And again, since it's a daily story, used the colors by Ivan Pedersen, and as always, it looks nice on this glossy paper, and it's a very nice color work. The story very nice. I quite liked a lot, and that's my favorites. I had read it back in like the Indrajal comics, and now it's nice to see like Regal publishing it in its purest form, the most nice form. But one problem I think a lot of people are talking about is the fact that these panels you see are very smaller size. What they are suggesting that Regal should kind of remove this title and other things and make the panels kind of enlarged, and that's what we essentially see from the colored issues from Shakti Comics, and that is what I think should also be better, because if you enlarge the size a little bit, it will be definitely easier to read and to look at the art itself, and it will also won't hurt the art or the story. So it is a very nice suggestion made by people, and it is, I think, indeed, because we do have like the original form. It is reprinted by Hermes Press, but when you get this in a comic book format, you can kind of enlarge it, and without hurting its like quality, etc. So that marks the end of the story. Yeah, nicely printed again by Regal. So let's second go story to the book, which is Return to the Temple of Gods. So you can see the first story only lasted 18 pages. Now this story begins from the 18th page to goes to the 80th page. So it is a hell of a long story, but it is also interesting to mention that this story is the recent completed Sunday story, and Regal published it just 2 or 3 weeks after it ended. So this is it's a very interesting, not just interesting, but a very significant move by Regal, because they have been the ones to print the recent Sunday stories as they finish up in a comic book format. This time around, they have beaten added a new record to their publishing history, because they are not only the first ones to publish it, but they are also the ones to immediately publish it after its completion. So yeah, that is what is essentially the story. So we see the return of we see the Phantom and Diana returning to the island of Eden, because it has been unexplored for quite long time in the strip, and we get to see and then the famous Tony DePaul's saga of like the Egyptian temple inside the Isle of Eden, and we get to see some familiar faces from those daily stories return, like Mina Brown, etc. And we get to get introduced to some new characters. I'm not essentially a big fan of the story. I guess I'm a purist, but I won't be talking about that because I'm just examining the quality of the Mikael's production, and it is top notch. It's literally top notch because it looks great. Man, the colors really pop in this glossy paper pages. So yeah, that's what the story is about, and nicely printed by Regal. So in this 80-page book, so that is number 33. Looking at the number 34, this issue again is contains only one story. It is a new format that Regal is starting with this previous issue. Now we have this issue with only one story. This is priced 200 for one story, and yeah, so a cover by Ovila Checo again, and it contains the story The Crusader's Treasure. So this is a story written by Tony DePaul, and the art is by George Olson and Keith Williams. And we get this freebie card as a gift. It is as a freebie. So this card is kind of smaller in size compared to the previous card they gave away. That's nice. So let's look into the issue itself. So this story is one of those stories that Regal had published, and not in India apparently. It was never published in India in a comic book format, not even the Euro Books series. So this is the first time in a comic book format we are getting this story. And I kind of, it is a it's not a bad story, it's just a nice story, and yeah, the art is what it is, and it just yeah, it's fine. Some nice panels there, but the colors are quite nice as well. Yeah, so that is the story. Only 32 pages. The other issue had this has some more pages, but only one story. Yeah, so that is what this issue is about. So that was the review of the Regal issues of the 32, 33 and 34. I mean, they are nice, quite nice, but it's interesting that Regal has chosen to publish only one story in one book. That is very new format for them, and they always had like 2 stories in one single issue, if you will. But this is something new that they have been trying. I don't know if this is very much acceptable for the fans, if they like it or not, because I'm not essentially a fan of this concept, because you know, we don't get comics from them like for 2 months, and then we, at the end of the gap, we get some comics. And now in August they released this, and in October they got this out. That's like, you know, a long gap. You know, for a long gap you give us this. I mean, it makes sense for like these. They have 3 stories. They are released together. Fine, for one time. But this, after a long gap, only 1 story. Looking at the issue number 10, it has a cover by Abhishek Bishas, and the story that this issue has is called The Lake Lady, and it is based off the story, and it advertises as a complete color story, and it is a color story, and we'll see the color inside. So this time Shakti has got a new colorist to color their the comics. This because it is a daily story, and it was not originally in color. So, and it's written by Leaf Hawk, and the art is by Cyber. So the new colorist they got is Santosh Atsul. Santosh Atsul I mean, I'm not essentially a big fan of his work on this. It's because I'm not comparing with anything, but it is, you know, the colors look a lot darker. You know, you don't see anything on the panels, nothing else. Like this looks so dark, like you can't see a thing. Colors, and too much use of color sometimes, it's a thing, and that's essentially what is happening here. Here you see where it is. Here you can see the panel of Moz. Like, look, he looks so darkened that you can't even, you know, tell it's him. Like, yeah, the color is not something that I'm a fan of. Kind of. Yeah, it is. Some panels kind of look interesting, but the fact that you know, if we talk about the Phantom's costume here, which I just got reminded of, is you know, when it is underwater, you kind of the shade of the suit changes. That does not mean, like, if it is underwater it can be darker, and it is not if it is not. The suit of the Phantom, the costume, yeah, it looks it is too much brightened. Like, this is kind of the reminder of the Indrajal days, but still it is not. It's a very not. It is too much of coloring. like this kind of darker color on the Phantom suits him. And we get to see one more thing is that the Phantoms, the trunks, the underwear of the Phantom wears, the stripes are colored red and black. And the red and black stripe is not something we see commonly with the Phantom. Even in the cover, you have the Phantom in like blue and black stripes. But here, inside the story, the red and black stripes. That is a very, I'm not much of a fan of it. So, yeah, like I said, kind of too much use of color. I think like the examples here, and I won't like point it out because I just want to keep it short. But yeah, it has examples. The coloring is not subpar. It's not, and yeah. Story is very nice, but it's a classic Phantom story. But you don't. The color kind of ruins it for me, at least. And something is also interesting is that you kind of get to see the Phantom. Only two or three of these panels, like on this page, the Phantoms like these the white eyes the Phantom has on the mask. It is kind of bluish, but then again it changes to white. And why? What was the need of the blue thing? So yeah, I'm criticizing the color too much, but then they kind of misplaced a panel here as well, which is another problem. So yeah, I mean the thing is then this panel right there, it looks quite more darkened, as you can see. So what I'm criticizing them the most, but what I would give them credit for is that the fact that they kind of have the panels enlarged. Let's see, that kind of makes the reading experience pleasant. It's also because the books, the size of the book, if we compare with a Regal Comics, yeah, it is slightly bigger. Slightly, the length is slightly bigger, but that kind of makes the difference and makes the reading of the story pleasant. That's what I would give them credit for, and also the fact that because of their nice glossy paper, it's even thicker than Regal, what Regal uses. The colors really pop, but in a wrong way, because the colors are not pleasant here. So if we get like the great colors, yeah, it will be a very nice combo, very nice combo, and that's what I am hopeful for. Yeah, so that is what it is. We at the end have this Phantom writers and artists kind of info, and it's nice that to have kind of some information about things, especially for the new readers or the continuous readers who does not know much about the Phantom. But still, this information is kind of what is available online, I think, that kind of information they've gotten, but they have forgot to mention like the newer artists like Jeff Regal or the ghost artists that are assisting Mike Manley. And, that is something, but the information is not entirely updated here, and we have this information on the Lake Lady story itself, but yeah, it is a kind of summary and everything. I mean, it's quite fine, and I think it is a fine addition. And we again have this what they used in back when they started their first issue. This is from their first issue, the story of the Curse of the Old Man Mods, and we have the Phantom's introduction, and then surprise, surprise, I noticed a spelling mistake. Of course, there is also some grammatical and punctuation errors, which I think needs to be taken care of by Shakti. And we see that a new logo, new company has merged with Shakti. It's called the Right Order. So it is. I hope they will bring more to the Shakti's quality. Looking at the issue number 11 from Shakti, the Phantom, the Return of General Bababu, we get this cover by Abhishek Bishwas. It looks very nice actually, as you can see here. It looks very nice, as you can see, especially the Phantom's figure. It looks very nice, and the fracas on his back, but the Puma is kind of terrifying looking. And here's Bababu. Yeah, it's a very dynamic, nice cover by Abhishek Bishwas. The story, the Return of General Bababu, is a Lee Falk and Seuj story, and since it's a daily story, they hired Santosh Atsul, same colorist from the last issue, who I had some problems with, for this issue as well. So let's get into it. First, we have some introduction about the character of Bababu, and yeah, it is so indeed this is indeed very good for the new readers of the Phantom, and the old readers if they want some recap of what happened before. So the story begins from here. It looks, the colors again kind of a bit darkened, but yeah, I mean the color is used kind of, you can see here, too much to make it kind of cartoonish, while Regal, if you remember, like the iPhone's coloring, it's like it's a balance between, like, it is not real, but you kind of feel the coloring, and it looks present to your eyes, and the Semi Muhammad coloring is kind of that as well. But this is kind of too much overuse of coloring, if I would say. And the backgrounds, it looks kind of odd. It is kind of the kind of reminds me of the Indrajal days, especially if you see this thing here, this the Phantom's chin, it is no longer visible. Right? It is a famous Seuj pose of the Phantom, and you don't, when you see the black and white, I don't currently have that with me, but it is weird. And then, yeah, that is the same problem. And the Indrajal coloring sits here because kind of the Phantom's costume was like that, but it is the use of color is like too much. They used it, but they just the kind of expression the Seuj put into the strip, it is no longer visible because the color was used more, there. Yeah, if you understand what I mean. So regardless, this panel looks really nice. So it's a very nice panel. But some panels look nice, but yeah, it is regal, not regal, but the Indrojal kind of coloring it is, and that's essentially what Shakti is trying to do. But then again, we see keeping that aside, we see the Phantom trunks again in I would say in red and black, which is not very. It is not something I like, but yeah, the glossy page, everything. But if Shakti wants to continue publishing these kind of like folk and fairy stories, they do need to kind of keep in mind about their coloring, and I think Santosh Atul has done some good job, but I'd expect it to be more nicer, if that's something they can do, because you have to keep in mind about the coloring. There are many examples of the story that the coloring ruins the original art, but I won't go into that. Yeah, it's fine if you want to read this story, some stuff. It looks, as a colored story, it looks fine, but for someone like me, I suppose, who has read the black and white and seen some other colored version and would expect something better, like Ivan's work, but it's fine. These last panels were printed in Indrojal as a different story, and some stuff I remember now. Yeah, so again we have the synopsis of the story that Shakti is starting to give away, and then again we see this end page with the introduction to the Phantom, and surprise, surprise, the sole survivor is still there, and the punctuation errors. It seems Shakti hasn't checked their spellings, and that's fine. I hope they do better from their next issue.
Welcome to Chronicle Chamber. My name is Chris, and today I'll do the Zauberstern comic review number 9. For under 10 euros you get 3 comics, some information from the publisher, and today we have Concrete Jungle, United States, 2008, but it's from 2009. It's from Mike Bullock, Kevin Greviot and Samikla Goncalves. Painting Jason Jensen. The next comic is The Return of Chateau from Tony Powell and Paul Ryan. It's from 2006, United States, a daily comic. The next comic is also from 2006, from Tony D. Powell and Paul Ryan. It's The Doorman. So we start with the Concrete Jungle. It's cool that it's only released today in United States and Germany only. It's a good quality from the paper, and the paintings are nice. It's a long story, but I like it very much. And if you see, it's darker poor painting, I say, but I like it. Then, like I said, it's from 2009. And what is cool with this comic, you see the Defenders of the Earth characters in this comic too. And we move to the next comic. It's called in German Die Rückkehr der Python, The Return of Chateau, and it was released in several states, countries of the world, like Australia, Bahamas, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Jamaica, Mexico, Sweden, Turkey. So it's going around the world. And this comic, you see, it's a daily story. I like the story very much. The paintings and colors are beautiful. It's good quality. All Zauberstern comics are from good quality. And now it's the last comic, Sklavenhändler, also The Doorman, from Tony DePaul, also released in several states. Like I said before, Bahamas, Denmark, Finland, India, Jamaica, Mexico, Norway, El Salvador, Sweden, Turkey, United States. Also, it's a cool comic. It's a 2018 daily story, and the Return of the Chateau is a 2017 daily story. And we come to an end now. The next Phantom magazine is coming out 12th of December, and we have some fan post from Boris with some awesome tattoos on his body and the back page. Today we did another review. Today we get the third publisher announced that he is doing Phantom comic. This time it's ECR publisher from Germany, and he takes Seuj comics that was released in newspaper in Germany 1961, and they got all the old paper strips and they released it new, like you see in hardcover and 3 softcover, and for English people the hardcover get English version too. So it comes out in December. We put the description and the links to buy the comics. You see the old strips, but we must change to a extra magazine. You see here it's some information, again some advertising, then more informations, and then the first Seuj comic strips, and they did the original release in the newspaper and printed it new in 23. Now you see it continues with Comic Rundschau 17, some advertising which the publisher as well publishes, some advertising, backside, and in the Comic Rundschau the story continues. It's like I said, the old comic strips printed new, so it's a nostalgic flair in it, but I like it very much. Again, some information, then other comics, Then an interview with Abir and the Fantomen. Some information about the Fantomen. Yeah, and it's an old magazine from 1991 that I had also. Some information from Wikipedia. The checklist, Abir released comics. And other comics, advertising Fantomen, the back side. And then we have the old magazine too. It's from 1991. It looked like old, but there are some informations about Lee Falk in this magazine. Some comics. Here you get some information about Lee Falk. One page of Fantomen. Lee Falk, more Lee Falk. Some things they released in Germany. Other comics in this magazine. Then it's the prizes here in Germany from the comics. The Smurfs, number 1, 20 German marks at this time. And then we are done with this old magazine too. So you can buy it. We put the link in the description. And thanks for watching.
Righto, thank you for that. And that's our journey around the world with our Chronicle Chamber team, and so much appreciate those guys for sending their reviews in. It just adds so much to the podcast. Thank you so much. But for all of our international listeners, you'll all be following, however you can follow, the daily and the Sunday. So let's have a look at the way that Tony DePaul's daily and Sunday are going over. Now, the daily at the moment, it's going through an interesting phase. We've seen 3 artists, and we probably just talked about this briefly in the last one, but Jeff Weigel has officially taken over as the artist for the Sunday. An interesting note. Sorry?
He was already the artist for the Sunday, for the daily.
Yes, no, he's well accredited as the Sunday artist. You're absolutely right, Steve. He's now the daily artist as well, which puts him into a unique club. Interesting that Jeff was immediately credited as the artist in the dailies, whereas Scott Cohn, who took over from Mike Manley, still had Manley's signature basically in the panels. But as soon as Jeff has taken over on Monday, the 20th of November, he's been credited. And I really like the artwork that he's bringing to the table. We can talk about the artwork, but the storyline is progressing as well. And we're seeing the destiny that's been prophesied by Old Man Moz over the last 2.5 years starting to come to a resolution. And I say that with a big question mark. Is it actually coming to a resolution, do you think? We know the story's going to end in the next 7 weeks or so.
I wonder, knowing that the end is 7 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is, does that make it better or worse in your opinion? I actually think it makes it better, because people who are a little bit worn out going, oh, we've got 6-7 more weeks to go, let's focus on this, and I know where the ending is and I can enjoy that. So I actually think it might be good, because we've sat through this for what? It's been about a 3-4 year period. It's a lot.
Certainly 2.5 years at least of this 7-part saga. Yeah.
So I wonder if that letting people know will actually give it a little bit more of a, okay, we know where the ending is, let's enjoy this last bit and then we can move on. So I wonder if that was planned or just a happy accident, but I like the idea.
Oh, that's a really good point, Jerm. I don't think it was planned, because just knowing the creators, I don't think Tony would have liked people to know when the end was. I think that between them, Jeff and Mike put puzzle pieces down that, we fans pick up and put together, and suddenly we go, oh, that means it's 8 weeks between the things that they said. But I agree with you. I actually think it does. It gives you an opportunity to go, right, I need to refocus and see how this finishes now, because I've been invested, whether it's heavily or partially, or you're an intermediate fan or whatever. Suddenly going, right, now this epic is coming together. I need to pay attention. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
One thing I want to quickly focus on is this little sequence from the 25th of October for a day or two. Today was to be decision day at Gravelands by Savannah. The regime offered me a pardon if I would pledge an oath to fascism. My first assignment, the murder of Lamanda Luaga. So I must admit, I skipped over that. I didn't even really focus on that. And that's the reason why the Admiral, which we saw a couple of days before, rocked up, was because they were going to focus on a coup, I guess we'll call it, of Bengala. So, so I wonder if that's going to be the next arc or the next storyline where we're going to see from the daily stories.
Where Rhodia are targeting Luaga, albeit not with Savannah. Yeah.
And you also got to remember that Bengalan citizens, i.e. the Banda, have actually technically invaded Rhodia to free the citizens of Rhoda who were imprisoned, who are now refugees for Bengala. So I don't. It's like I was rereading it today, so, getting these images together, and I'm like, oh, hey, what have I missed here? And
look, quite possibly.
There's definitely another story thread for him to pick up.
Now, speaking of story threads, I did about a week ago just throw a little hand grenade into the group chat here at Chronicle Chamber. There was a moment where I thought, and we're just about at it now, Jim, with the images that you're showing, where as Savannah came home, as Savannah enters the Skull Cave, she sees Kit.
Maybe she is coming home.
Maybe she is.
Easy, Tiger.
And there just seems to be a hint of romance between Kit Jr. and Savannah. And then with the parents trying so desperately to keep them apart from each other. And my brain had forgotten about the prophecy and was just like, let's look at the romance. Mum and Dad are trying to keep this older woman away from their young son. And it's just as Scott Cohn's art finishes and Jeff Weigel's takes over, which is the screen that Germ's got on the YouTube at the moment. We just go, oh, that's right. Savannah's a strapping and fit young lady, albeit for all of her time. Older lady for all of her time in Gravelines.
Seems to be younger than us, mate.
in these images, and Jeff Weigel's drawn her in ways that neither Mike Manley or Scott Cohn did in their iterations. And just the way that Kit Jr.'s eyes light up when he sees her just made me go, oh, hang on, could this prophecy take a second direction? We saw at different times over the last couple of years, Old Man Moz prophesizing that Savannah was going to end up with the Phantom and was going to be the mother of the Phantom's children. And the way it was presented at the time was very much Diana's disappeared, so the Phantom needs to continue his line with another woman, because the twins also have disowned all interest in carrying on the Phantom lineage. I thought, well, hang on, could this be a different step in the destiny where, with the other things that have happened and changes that people made, we tweak it and Savannah still is that role in the Phantom lineage, but her husband, her beau, whatever word you want to use, her partner, is the 22nd Phantom, not the 21st. So I wrote a bit of an article. It caused it got a few responses on the socials. I was pleased to see, with people entertaining or discussing the idea. What did you think, guys? It was a bit of fun.
Look, we loved it. I don't know about you, Steve, but I loved the idea. I loved the play. It got some reactions. To be honest, there was less people against the idea than what I thought there would be.
The idea has merits. I haven't seen people's reactions, but I think the idea has merit, and it's something that we can all digest or swallow. We can, it's not a bitter pill. Phantom 21 getting with Savannah, no. Phantom 22 getting with Savannah. Well, now we're talking. Now we're going somewhere.
Thanks, Steve. That's what I thought too, because I did not want Savannah to replace Diana, but Kit Jr. or Phantom 22 wouldn't be the first Phantom, surely, ever to get together with an older woman.
And it was actually interesting in some of that artwork there, particularly when the others took over between Manly and Weigel. Kit looked a lot older in a lot of that artwork. They tend to look, some of the same age. Particularly, look at those shots there from whatever date it is. Kit's looking older there, but then when Weigel takes over, he tends to be a bit more youthful again. I guess the full beard becomes a bit more of a stubble.
Yes, he shaved.
Yeah, a couple of things though, particularly this panel that we're on, the 18th of November. It's for lack of a better term, it's the shower scene where Savannah's saying that she's so grateful for being taken out or being rescued from grave lines. She's going to be dedicate herself to honoring that. For as long as I live, I won't kill again. I'm done with revenge. All the rest of it there, which is pretty much, I think, word for word. There might be a few words different. What she said many years or however earlier in the prophecy, anyway.
I think we said about 18 months. I think from memory.
18 months ago. There you go. Yeah. And where she says the same thing. The only difference between this shower scene and the other one was, and I haven't mentioned it before in our communication, but it's the way that Savannah's facing. In the earlier one, she's facing what we'd say would be facing back. And as we know in the prophecy, she goes back into her old ways. Where in this one, she's facing forward. And I like to think that she's going to be true to her word and move forward and move on, and everything's going to be right in the world.
Very deep, Stephen.
I'm the eternal optimist.
Very deep, very deep, very good. I just thought they did it to when I saw, I just thought, oh yeah, they're just doing things a little bit differently. But no,
they never do anything just to be different. There's always a reason.
There was another one with when you're talking about the same comments.
Yes.
Where was it?
The
there we go. On the 3rd of November, where Kit's like, "You're a seafaring woman, Captain Savannah. What are you doing way out here in the deep woods?" And then that was when they've met in the prophecy in the Himalayas as well. So it's fun picking up these little bits and going, "Oh yeah, I remember that when that comes there." And I think fans will enjoy it more when they digest it all 7 parts or whatever it is as one read, because then they'll be able to flick through the pages. And
what worries me a little is I think that from an Australian point of view, I think Frew have already printed the first 1 or 2 of these parts, haven't they? So I really would have liked them to be gathered as a single trade paperback, for instance, but I'm not sure that will happen in the near future.
I like to think that it will, because with the Python, didn't they? Python, or when Dana goes missing, they did that from memory. They did that as well, but then they still collected them all into one issue.
I think they did the first story, and then they decided, no, we need to publish them all together. So there's a little bit of precedent. So let's hope that Dudley does do that, because I think a trade paperback of these 6 or 7 parts would actually be quite good.
Yeah, it'd be too big for a regular issue. Well, it would be the annual, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe the annual. So yeah,
I think as a separate trade paperback but that would mean that these dailies never came into the regular comics either. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
maybe an annual.
Yeah, worth saying that my speculation about the Savannah hooking up with 22nd Phantom, safe to say that that's, and I said this at the back of the article, that I'm probably going to be proved wrong. Tony DePaul, we're flattered to know, subscribes to our website, which is something you can do if you want to subscribe to the website, and you can get notifications whenever a new article gets posted. Within hours of me posting that article, he contacted chroniclechamber.com at gmail.com and said, I'd never thought of that. So that never occurred to me. So safe to say I'm wrong. That's not going to happen. Tony was generous enough to say that was not an unrealistic interpretation or an unrealistic reading of the story. So thank you for Tony for indulging my speculation. But fans can be safe that Cardia may still be in play when it comes to Kit Jr. and the 22nd Phantom.
Yeah, we'll create that as a hashtag. Team Cardia.
Team Cardia. All right. So the Sunday. So we've got about 7 weeks to go. We'll probably review this one more time in the December comics and news, seeing how, depending on Christmas holidays and all the rest of it. Hopefully, but soon we're going to be talking about the whole thing and where it's finished. All right, so back to the Sundays, though. The Sunday, we're in episode number 194. The Commander will see you now. You've already alluded to John X in the podcast today, Steve. John X is central to the Sunday at the moment. What are your thoughts on the Sunday, so as it's unfolding, Steve?
The poor fam can't buy a break. No matter where he goes, he's always getting fawned over, even by the seriousness of soldiers in the Jungle Patrol. But I'm interested to see where this goes. Now we've seen parts here where not really breaking the fourth wall. Maybe it is, but using Lee Falk as a narrative device, describing how to.
That's an awesome.
He's making a story as the Phantom's trying to make up a story. A bit meta there, I guess.
That's beautifully done by Jeff there.
Oh yes, and we know that it's really playing on the John X and the Unknown Commander, and I'm assuming we're going to see the end of John X. I think that's what we're going for here, but the more uplifting of the Unknown Commander. There's going to be something big happening, and I'm unsure what it is. I'm really, really curious to find out what's going on.
Yeah, I get the same feeling, is that we're kind of building up for something, and yeah, I believe that we're going to see the end of John X. And I'm happy with that. I would rather the Unknown Commander than John X.
Yes, but I'm a traditionalist that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think John X complicates things a little bit in a way that it doesn't need to be. And what I'm enjoying about this story is I get the sense that, okay, so you just talked about Lee Falk being behind the fourth wall, and we're getting an insight as to how the story's been written. But really, I feel like this story has been written by the Phantom. He's got all of this plan in his mind. He knows exactly what's going to happen next week, but we don't know yet. And just the way that he's talking, and the way that he's setting this whole story up to be a reinforcement of the Unknown Commander is truly unknown. I think that we've seen Team Fantomen destroy the well, for instance, and spoil that aspect of the Unknown Commander. I feel like this is a little bit of bringing the unknown back to the Unknown Commander, if I can put it that way.
It feels like, very well said, Dan. It feels like those type of movies where you're kind of watching it all unfold, and then towards the end you're going to go, oh yeah, that's this, and we know that Tony doesn't make mistakes. Everything's perfectly planned down to the minute detail. It's like It's kind of like you remember the old Ocean's 11's movies where you've got the heist, and then when you actually watch the heist, you can kind of go back and watch. You're kind of going back and watching the whole movie on why certain things happened the way they did, because it's all a perfect plan. It feels like we're going to get that type of story.
When you were describing it before you went to Ocean's 11, my brain went to The Usual Suspects with Kaiser Seuj.
Yes. That was the one I was trying to think of. Yes, thank you, Steve.
When he tells the story, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched The Usual Suspects. Go ahead and go watch it, then go listen to this comment about making up the story and planning the story out, and you're only seeing what the writer or the storyteller, in this case the Phantom or Lee Falk as the narrative device, wants you to know right then and there. He already knows John X, Phantom, unknown Phantom, whatever you want to call him. He knows what's happening next week. He's just giving us little drip feeds every now and then. It's no longer Tony DeFortone story. It's John X.
It's cool. All right. So, well, we don't know how many weeks are left in the Sunday. So,
we assume a fair few. That one's only really started, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. A few yet. So we're looking forward to that unfold. We need to get into the news, and we're going to start with we actually recorded a one-off special podcast around Moonstone and the fact that they were coming back. Since we recorded that, they announced a cover competition where artists were invited to contribute image ideas for Phantom covers. There was a whole bunch of the comic covers, the trade paperback covers, and the variant covers that were available. All of that news is in one of the posts that you've put up, Germ, on chroniclechamber.com. The competition is closed now, so we hope that lots of artists got their entries in. What are your thoughts on the contest as a concept to begin with? We didn't discuss that last time.
I guess it's an idea to get new and upcoming artists, give them a go, I guess, which is nice on one hand, but on the other hand, you'd think that well, I don't want to say a little independent coming, but they're no Marvel or DC, but they're big enough to have their own stable of artists. I would have thought they'd have them, but then again, a new series and a new change of way of doing things. Look, I'm 6 one way and a half. Doesn't the other? I'm always keen to see what new artists can do with the Phantom. So
yeah, I think that's
good. I'm happy.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. Is that it's great to see new artists or people that we haven't seen before. We might even see some people that we have seen before for Moonstone or for Frew or something. Submitting some covers. Moonstone does have a history of this. Back over a decade ago, they did it. Lindsay Walker, who was on the first podcast ever, Luca Roberta, Eugenio Matt Otzi, and there was one more. I can't remember his name, but he's from India. They all got the top 4. The top 3 got a cover, and they all actually got ongoing work with Moonstone. So, there's history with that. So obviously, like a lot of USA publishers, there's variant covers. So they will be having like variants. So the winners, I think there's 11 spots up for grabs or something. Some of their entries will actually go on variant covers over the 3 series, which is the Phantom, Last Night, Mandrake the Magician, 7 Nights Calling, and then the Phantom and Mandrake crossover, which is called the 7 Kings.
I'm a bit 6 to 1 half a dozen the other 2, to be honest, because look, at the end of the day, because all of the opportunities you talked about there, Germ, are certainly possibilities. I just hope that this isn't a cheap way of getting covers done, and that the artists who do get chosen as winners are financially compensated for their work in a fair way. Whether that is as future work, as you say, I was Steve. I was surprised when I first heard about it, because I would have thought that they'd have some go-to artists that they'd use.
Yeah, and those go-to artists will be there as well. But, you know, I'm assuming for each first issue, there might be 3 variant covers. There might be the regular and then 2 specials, and one of the specials might be one of the competition winners. So,
and it probably gives Moonstone a good way to gauge the popularity of artists too, because if one variant cover in particular is more highly sought after, then that'll give them some indication of who they could give some more work to down the track.
Now, we are in the middle of organising a podcast with Mikael Lyck. So that should come out maybe around Christmas or early next year. So that will be exciting to discuss some of the other questions that we have. So if you do have questions about Moonstone, make sure you send them to us. And our email address is chroniclechamber@gmail.com, and we can ask them those as well.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of podcasts that we do have coming up, the next item of news is the Art of Play game and where that is at the moment. And we actually had a podcast with Ash, the head honcho there at Art of Play, and central to the Phantom game, the computer game I'm talking about, of course, lined up, and we'll record that as soon as possible. There was a plane delay and all the rest of it that caused a problem there. But I guess one piece of news we can share outside of Ash being here is the fact that there is not going to be a Kickstarter, which was something that was talked about. He's let us know, he's confirmed that there won't be a Kickstarter associated with the Phantom game, which I'm choosing to take as a positive because it means they don't need the funding from the fans. The funding's already there.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I would have liked a Kickstarter. I love a good Kickstarter. But yeah, that is a very interesting and probably a positive way of looking at it.
I think it's definitely a positive way. We'll get this game. I think we're still going to have, excuse me, there'll still be like the standard base game, but then there'll be the collector's edition, if you like. And it doesn't need a Kickstarter to do that. So that's great to hear.
And I'm with you, Jerm. I love the Kickstarters we've been on the ride for in the past, particularly because, we're on the record. People can go back and listen to previous podcasts about us staying up for the moment the Kickstarter began so that we can get the original artwork or get the prototype figurines or whatever it might be as a super backer or whatever the language is there with Kickstarter. But as I say, the fact that they don't need that, I think, is a real positive because it just indicates that there is the financial support from the companies behind it who have faith in it, that they don't need that sort of backing from the punters.
Yeah, and Ash has got a whole heap of news that he wants to talk about, but we'll save that for the podcast, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Now, one thing that it's very exciting, and I wish I'd been able to get there because it's only 6 hours drive away. But there's a new Phantom art exhibition that's been launched in Queensland. It's in the city of Bundaberg, which for international listeners is if you think about the map of Australia on the eastern coast, you've got Sydney, and above that is Brisbane. All the way up to the top is the Cape York, the pointy bit at the top of Australia. Bundaberg's, I'm going to say, about a third of the way up that. If you want to try and follow where that is on a map. Bundaberg's launched a Phantom art exhibition. Shane Foley, we've mentioned him as an artist contributing to Giantsize, and he's Germ's short price favourite for the next giant-sized cover artist. He is pretty central to an art exhibition that is in the Bundaberg Art Galleries. It's opened now. The opening was 2 weeks ago on the 18th of November. It's going to run through to the 4th of February. And like the Phantom art show a little while ago that travelled up and down the coast of Australia, like we've seen at various exhibitions from time to time, it's just exciting to hear of and to see photos of a bunch of Phantom artwork and a focus on our character. It gets local news media traction, whether it's in print form, radio form, bit of TV, social medias, that sort of thing. It's just cool to see the Phantom getting some airtime in that way.
Very well said. And with thanks to our roving reporters, we have lots of audio and video and photos. And Duncan has just recorded a bit of a synopsis, look back review of the evening and the weekend, and that video, we might turn it into a podcast, will be out soon as well.
By evening, I mean the opening on the 18th, 19th of November, which did look pretty cool on the socials. Sorry, Steve.
I was just going to say, I love how you said it's only 6 hours away. In some places, like that's going through 3 countries.
Yeah.
I do have ambitions of getting up there over my Christmas holidays. My family, it's fair to say, is less keen than I am.
That might actually work out better if you can go by yourself.
Might be just being the boy. We'll see how we go.
Make it a phantom trip, and like go, okay, so you got to go through all these places and see how many phantom skull caves you can visit on the way and on the way back.
Well, there are a few in the southeast corner of Queensland on the way up. Could be a week-long odyssey. That would be a podcast. I could turn that into a YouTube series. Tell that to Netflix or something. Let's see how we go. All right. So as Jerm said, we hope to have a lot more information via YouTube and the podcast channel coming up soon. Now, as I've said a number of times, we're right at the end of November, about to launch into December. Now's the time to be talking to your significant others, to your casual others, to the people who barely know you, to everybody who's got any intention of buying you any sort of Christmas present about the Phantom guide, the Phantom shopping list, the guide that's on Chronicle Chamber. Jerm, you've owned this. It's quite a long list. What do you have you been able to pass this link on to any of your casual others to buy you Phantom?
No, I haven't. Look, my family. Look, if I want any of it, I'm just going to have to buy it myself. That's the best way it's going to happen. And as the little funny meme says, is you know where it says you cannot just buy Phantom comics and merch and gift them to yourself for Christmas. And as the cat says, they clearly say from Santa.
Absolutely. Look, like if you have got any people who might be thinking about it, wife, kids, certainly send them the link. And maybe a bit of an indication of where, because and what I really took away from the list, Jerm, is there's so much more this year than there has been in previous years, I feel.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I did it, is because the last couple of years there's been the comics and stuff, but there hasn't been as much. And now it's like, well, there's all the figurines, there's the Perth Mint stuff. You can get subscriptions from like 3, 4, 5 different countries. You know, there's like just with the Perth Mint coins alone, there's 5 different coins you can get. You know, there's icon collectibles, there's mugs, there's statues, there's busts, there's clothing. You know, if you're living in the USA and India, you can be decked out. You know, forget the ugly shirts and all that. You can have a cool Phantom shirt. So, you know, there's some awesome stuff to be able to buy. There's some original artwork. We've got some links of some artists who are selling artwork on there as well. And yeah, I think it is worth digging out if you've got be desperate. Send them the link and say, look, forget the socks, forget the towels, forget the jocks, forget the barbecue aprons and all that type of stuff. Here's some stuff you can buy me.
Have you passed it on yet, Steve?
I'm just cutting through the list here. I forgot about this, the 10-inch bust. I remember seeing that ages ago and just looking over it now. That's on special at Pop Culture at $89.99, down from $99.99. However, it's still not. It's still on pre-order.
Yeah.
I may have gotten a subscription for Christmas.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
That's good work, mate. That's been too long coming, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've got that for Christmas, and I'm really happy about that.
You won't.
Sorry.
You won't be sorry.
I won't. No. The comic shop might be a little bit sorry they don't get my business anymore. But oh well.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jerm, you mentioned the 5 coins available from the Perth Mint. We've seen recently. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because they call it a coin. I've never seen a coin. Never seen a coin that is in figurine style. Like it's a head, shoulders, arms, waist.
Looks like a pop vinyl figure.
It does. Good point, Steve. It looks like a pop vinyl figure. All of the previous coins have been some form of
coin shape-ish.
Circles. The coin shape. But on the back, it proudly says that it's worth $1 in Tuvalu if you want to go and buy your coffee there. Yeah, it's a weird. Are you anyone likely to get it? I'm fascinated by it.
I'm going to get it. I will get it. I haven't got the expensive one, the 2-ounce one. I reckon that's actually the best looking shape coin. I think this is kind of cool. It's a fairly new concept. Like I've looked on Perth Mint's website and they've got other designs like, Harry Potter and some other pop culture ones. So it's probably something newish. So yeah, it's kind of cool that we've now got the Phantom shaped one as well.
They're a bit pricey for my blood. Like they're always around that $100 or more than $100 worth. And their packaging looks absolutely amazing, and I'm sure it's a really high quality product. But it's a bit on the exy side.
Yeah, it's hard to justify that spend to your wife when you are usually telling her that it only costed $20.
It only costs $1. It says so on the coin.
Absolutely. All right. Something else that's on the Christmas list there is the Boss Fight Studios Phantom. We're up to wave 2.0. Figures are coming out. So hopefully they're starting to appear in your local comic book store, and some Aussie stores are getting them in. So we're hopeful, obviously, that someone's going to be able to pick them up in the next week or two and put a review up on the YouTube site. I've certainly got my standing order in with my local comic book shop. I imagine you guys have got similar things going on.
Yes. So there's a website. I can't remember the website at the top of my head. Cult Collectibles or something like that. It's an Australian one. They've actually shipped theirs. So mine's actually on its way.
Oh, very good.
All
We're going to have to wait until I got down to Melbourne again and pick them up from Minotaur.
In Finland, they've released a second trade paperback. It's going to, well, so I say they've announced it's going to be released in February of 2024. It's good to just keep these things churning out around the world, and a trade paperback to come out in Finland. I know that they've lost their regular comic, but at least there is this opportunity to pick up the deeper dive, the bigger books for our character.
Definitely. And Denmark's done the same.
Yeah, a whole new series that's coming out. That's a regular. What is that? A monthly, bi-monthly, Germ?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it might be like maybe a quarterly or a bi-monthly or something as well.
Right, so keep an eye on that. The links, the news for all of this is on chroniclechamber.com. The links for this will be in the podcast notes as well. In terms of if you're in Denmark or you're around that area, if you a bit of a completist, you want to get up the comics from Denmark, there's the way to do it. Likewise, there's another German comic book series coming from Cult Comics. That is a December release, which when we wrote the podcast run sheet felt like ages ago, but it turns out is the day after tomorrow. So that'll be exciting. Give our German reviewers something more to keep on top of.
Yeah, actually, what's actually interesting is there's actually another German Phantom comic book coming out as well. So there's the Cult Comics, which is the Mitten book, which has come out, and then there's another one by E.C.R. Werner or Warner, or say it with a German accent. So Germany's actually got 4 publishers publishing the Phantom at the moment.
Wowzers.
Yeah, wowzers. It is the year of Germany.
Are they all being sold, or are they flooding the market too much and just taking sales off one another? Kind of like when you've got really good midfield in the footy, that they all take votes off them in the Brownlow.
It's a good question. I think there's different target audience. Obviously, you've got the Wick comics, which are these ones here, which are the reprints of the Bastille stories. So that's what they look like there. Again, the reviews will be on our website. Yep, black and white, not red and white. And then you've got the Zubistan ones, which are full color. Again, same size. They've got the Timor covers on them, or the Felmang painted covers, and they've got a Lee Falk story, and then they've got kind of like a Moonstone story or a Team Fantomen story. Then you've got the ECR, which are publishing Lee Falk, Cy Barry classic daily stories in black and white. And then you've got this Cult Comics, which is producing the high quality Mitten stories, which are hardcover and quite from the collectible market as well. So from what I understand, Germany's going through a bit of a renaissance with comics and stuff like that. I guess it's probably the same as what Frew are producing, but it's probably just sharing the love across 4 different publishers instead of Frew doing everything.
Well, interesting. Good on Germany for doing it, and good on for seeing different target audiences and catering for each one of those.
Meanwhile, it's a shame then, while Germany's going ahead in that regard, that the news from Norway is that I'm going to get this wrong, but the Chronalgesic series has been cancelled. The Fantomen not happening anymore. So unfortunately, one comic starts, another comic closes, to paraphrase.
Yeah, well, we've had new series coming from Finland, Denmark, 4 from Germany, and now Norway. So the chronicle style is very similar as the Frew collector's replica, where basically they're going from the beginning and republishing all the comics in their traditional format with some articles and stuff like that in hardcover, or not hardcover, but thick type of cover. And they do like 3 or 4 comics at a time. So it's very similar as what Frew are doing. Sweden also do it as well. I guess the good news from a Norwegian point of view is that there's still the annuals that are coming out every year. But there's now no regular quarterly or every couple of months issues of the Phantom coming out in Norway. So that is a bit of a problem.
Yeah. No, well, as I say, we're an international community these days. So just hopefully you can subscribe, go back to their Christmas gifts link, and subscribe to the books of your choice from whatever country's close to you. All right, the last piece of news we've got is the new Patreon updates. Now, our Phantom preservation project is for long-term listeners, they'll be very familiar with that. And it's I guess the digital archive that we've got of all things Phantom. And we offer that as something that is available to our Patreon subscribers. If you support us to the tune of $5 a month, then you have access to the preservation project. The index of everything that is in the P3 now runs to 10 pages. It's a ridiculously large list of things that we've been able to archive digitally and make available to any Phantom fans who wants to contribute to supporting Chronicle Chamber for a month at $5. There is we've thrown a bunch of new things on lately. And just to go through some of the new stuff that's been added, as I said, over 10 pages of stuff. We've got some letters to fans, scans of letters to fans from Don Newton, the American artist. a whole raft of new magazine articles that have been added right from, I guess, 1976 through to almost present day, 2022. Magazines from all over the world, magazine articles about the Phantom, from America, from Sweden, from Australia, from India, from the UK as well. So articles from all over the world that have been added there. Some newspaper files, particularly from Australia. We've obviously, as an Australian group, the three of us, we've got more access to those. So a few more newspaper articles about the Phantom, images of members' patches from the Phantom Club, some cameos of the Phantom in some other newspaper strips, and that number just keeps on increasing. It's amazing how many times he pops his head into other comic strips. And I guess most entertainment for a lot of people will be all of the videos that we've been able to add recently. A whole bunch of public appearances of creators, Paul Mason at Supernova, Renee White presenting to the Australian Writers Association, even extra footage that's unseen for a long time from Pete Claus and Ed Rhodes, people whose footsteps we walk in. A Phantom forum that they hosted about the history of the Phantom, and then some fan-made stuff that we've been able to get off YouTube, and even some episodes from mainstream TV and Australian quiz show, both a couple of episodes that feature the Phantom as a topic, hard quiz, very entertaining. If you haven't seen that before, I recommend you check that out. The point being, there's just so much, and that's just scraping the surface of all of the stuff that is in the Phantom Preservation Project. I really recommend you go to patreon.com/Chronicle Chamber and follow the links there to our index. The index is available to everybody. You can see what's in there before you commit your money. But thank you to all of our patrons who are supporting us over a long period of time, enabling us to buy the bandwidth online to produce what we do and to save all of this in a way that makes it accessible to fans around the world. Someone else needs to talk now. I'm getting a sore voice.
I guess one thing that I would love to be able to get is the 1996 A&E biography. So they did a biography which featured Ed Rhodes, Pete, Jim Shepherd. Now, we do have a copy, but the sound is corrupt. So if anyone out there has a digital copy, whether it's on a DVD or a CD or something, please get in touch with us, because we would love to be able to replace our corrupted copy. And if there's anything else, I've had a couple of recent submissions from some fans. One fan gave us an article about the civil unrest from 1971 in Papua New Guinea. That's going to be a great little article to add. Anything like that, please get in touch with us.
Well, Dan kind of alluded to a moment ago when he said the bandwidth, but yeah, the money goes to hosting the website. We got fees to pay to have the website. It goes to the competitions that we run for our listeners. And of course there's bills with anything. It doesn't go to line our pockets. The money does not come to us. It all goes to Chronicle Chamber. And so we thank everyone for all the donations all the support that they give Chronicle Chamber, and allow us to do what we do to help keep the Phantom in people's minds.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it's probably been long. We always say this. It takes longer than we thought it was going to. It's nearly midnight again in your part of the world, Steve. So I apologise for that. But very much appreciate the opportunity to get together with you guys again and talk all things Phantom as we come into November. We haven't planned our Christmas podcast. We haven't really talked about the Best of Frew 2023 survey that'll be coming out soon. We haven't really talked about what our plans are for New Year's and how we move into it. But it's been a hectic end of 2023. And I think we're all looking forward to flopping into the summer holidays here in Australia. Check out everything we've talked about, and you can get links to everything that we've said there at our website, chroniclechamber.com. If you've listened to this point of the podcast, you've probably Googled it a couple of times by now. You can get in touch to us at chroniclechamber@gmail.com. And again, as I said right at the outset, subscribe to us wherever you're listening to this. go and check it out on YouTube, because you can follow along, particularly when we review the comics, a lot easier. And we thank all of our fans for tuning in, listening along, and indulging us as we talk about our favourite comic book character. So thank you very much, everyone. And until we do a Merry Fantoming, let's just do a Happy Fantoming for November.
Happy
Cheers, guys.
Fantoming.
Happy Fantoming.